Two suns do not condemn a planet to disorder. The idea seems absurd only because we imagine gravity as a simple force pulling from a center toward a body. One star, one planet, one orbit. But when there are two stars, the center no longer coincides with a visible object. It shifts. It oscillates. It becomes an invisible point around which even the suns themselves must dance. And it is precisely this detail, so counterintuitive, that makes possible what at first glance appears forbidden. A planet does not necessarily belong to a single star. It can belong to the pair. It can orbit their very center, far enough away not to be torn apart by their alternating poles, yet close enough to remain bound to the system like a single gravitational heart. Our intuition falters because it confuses complexity with instability. Two stars revolving around each other seem like a celestial machine too irregular to allow long-lasting orbits. Every star changes position. Every passage alters the direction of the gravitational force. Every cycle introduces variation. In such a place, we would expect planets to be expelled, orbits distorted, worlds doomed either to fall inward or escape into interstellar space. And in part, that is true. Near a binary pair there exists a dangerous region, a dynamic territory where a planet cannot survive for long. There, the perturbations are too strong. The orbit is stretched, compressed, bent. A small error amplifies. A deviation becomes a fracture. But beyond a certain distance, something remarkable happens. The two stars do not cease to be two, yet the planet begins to perceive them as a combined mass, as a double but average gravitational source. The irregularities remain, but they no longer dominate. The dance of the suns becomes a rhythm instead of a catastrophe. This is the threshold where apparent chaos transforms into architecture. Circumbinary planets, planets orbiting two stars, exist precisely on this frontier. They are not worlds defying the laws of physics. They are worlds revealing how much more flexible the laws of physics are than our imagination. For a long time, the most familiar way to discover exoplanets was by searching for a tiny shadow. A planet passes in front of its star and the light dims for a brief interval. If the dip repeats, astronomers suspect an orbit. If the rhythm is consistent, the suspicion grows stronger. This method transformed the hunt for planets into a kind of listening to light. A star shines, dims almost imperceptibly, then shines again. Inside that tiny breath, a world is hidden. But with two stars, the entire scene changes radically. An eclipsing binary already produces its own shadows. One star passes in front of the other. The brightness falls, then rises again. The whole system resembles a luminous clock, but a complicated one. If a planet crosses the disk of one of the two stars, its signal does not always arrive with the simple regularity we know from single star systems. Sometimes it transits one star. Sometimes the other. Sometimes it does not transit at all, because the orientation of the orbit carries it outside our line of sight. The planet may exist and remain invisible. It may influence the system without ever drawing its shadow across our telescopes. This is where the most intriguing method emerges. Instead of searching directly for the planet, astronomers observe the eclipses of the stars themselves. Two eclipsing stars should follow a predictable schedule. Every minimum of light is an appointment. If the system were isolated, those appointments would possess almost mechanical precision. But if a third body orbits the pair, even without passing in front of the stars, its gravity can slightly alter that timetable. The eclipses arrive a little early, then a little late. Their rhythm does not break, but it bends. The clock remains a clock, yet something is tugging at it. From this tiny temporal anomaly, the presence of a planet can emerge. We do not see it as a dark spot. We do not photograph it as a sphere suspended in darkness. We infer it from the behavior of the stars, from the way they lose their punctuality. It is a discovery based on an indirect trace, but most of deep astronomy works this way. The sky rarely hands over objects directly. It offers effects. A star wobbles and suggests a companion. A light reddens and suggests distance. An eclipse is delayed and suggests a hidden presence. A circumbinary planet thus becomes a kind of gravitational signature, an invisible pressure imprinted onto time itself. And this overturns the question. We no longer need to ask only how many planets transit their stars. We must ask how many planets never transit at all and yet still alter the rhythm of the systems that host them. The difference is enormous, because a method based on shadows sees only what passes through the right point, at the right moment, with the right inclination. A method based on timing can notice even what never crosses a stellar disk. Of course, the clue is not immediate proof. Stars are living, unstable, magnetic, deformable objects. They can have spots, activity cycles, tidal distortions. They can exchange material. They can possess elliptical orbits whose orientation slowly changes. A delay in eclipses does not automatically mean a planet. It may indicate another, more massive body, a brown dwarf, a faint distant star, or an internal effect within the binary pair itself. This is why new worlds identified through these techniques are often called candidates. They are robust possibilities, not final verdicts. Yet even the word candidate is powerful, because it reveals how knowledge advances. First an anomaly appears. Then a model is constructed. Then independent observations are sought. If the signal survives, the hypothesis strengthens. If it collapses, the system has still taught us something. Science does not progress merely by accumulating certainties. It progresses by learning to distinguish between similar illusions and different causes. In a binary system, that distinction is delicate. A relatively light planet on a closer orbit can produce an effect resembling that of a more massive object on a wider orbit. Eclipse timing may suggest a family of solutions rather than a single answer. Additional measurements are needed, such as the motion of the stars along our line of sight, to determine how massive the hidden body truly is. But uncertainty does not diminish the wonder. It increases it. Because it means we are observing systems so complex that they force us to read multiple layers simultaneously. Light, gravity, time, geometry. A two-sun planet is not merely an object in orbit. It is a question posed to the entire system. Where can a world survive when the center itself is double? How far away must it remain to avoid destruction? How close must it stay to leave a measurable trace? And how many worlds have escaped our catalogs simply because we searched only for the kind of signal easiest to imagine? The deepest answer is not about a single planet, but about the way we conceive order itself. Order is not always simple symmetry. It is not always a perfect circle around an unmoving center. Sometimes order is repetition surviving perturbation. It is a dynamic equilibrium, a choreography in which every body alters the others without destroying the overall structure. Two stars may appear to threaten stability, yet they can also become the core of a stable system, provided the distances and rhythms are right. In this sense, circumbinary planets are not bizarre exceptions. They are living proof, or at least dynamically possible proof, that the universe builds stability even from ingredients that seem contradictory to us. The most fascinating consequence is that a circumbinary planet would not simply possess a more spectacular sky than ours. It would possess a sky governed by a different logic. Its sunrises would not always look the same. Sometimes the two suns would rise close together, nearly fused into a double radiance. Sometimes they would be separated, and the shadows on the ground would point in slightly different directions. At certain periods, one star might eclipse the other, turning daylight into something more fragile, as though brightness itself had an internal pulse. The seasons would depend not only on the tilt of the planet's axis and its average distance from the sun's, but also on the mutual positions of the two stars along their orbit. The received energy could vary through overlapping cycles. A simple calendar would not suffice. There would be cycles within cycles, patterns of light repeating only after long intervals, perhaps difficult for hypothetical observers on the surface to perceive intuitively. But here too, the key word is not impossibility. It is adaptation. A variable environment is not necessarily sterile. Earth itself is not a motionless laboratory. It has seasons, climatic oscillations, solar cycles, slow orbital variations, catastrophes and recoveries. Life, wherever it exists, does not require a static universe. It requires windows of stability long enough for chemistry to organize itself and for complexity to accumulate. On a planet with two suns, those windows might differ from ours, more irregular, perhaps narrower, perhaps surprisingly broad. The presence of two stars does not automatically destroy the possibility of favorable conditions. It merely makes them harder to calculate. And what is difficult to calculate is often mistaken for impossible. The problem arises because our solar system educated us toward a very specific model. One dominant star, planets on orderly orbits, one primary light defining the day, a clear center. But this pattern is not the galaxy's absolute rule. Many stars belong to multiple systems. They are born in pairs, in groups, in crowded environments. The Sun's solitude may not be the most common starting model, but merely one among many possible configurations. If a large fraction of stars live in pairs, then asking whether planets can exist around two stars is not a marginal curiosity. It is a central question for understanding how many worlds may truly exist. To exclude binary systems would mean amputating a vast portion of the galaxy from our planetary imagination. But the galaxy is under no obligation to produce worlds only under conditions that feel comfortable to us. It can form them in disturbed disks, around young and variable stars, near unstable regions, after long and violent migrations. A planet does not need to form exactly where we observe it today. It may originate farther away, in a quieter region of the disk, and later migrate inward. It may be pushed, slowed, braked by gas, captured near the edge of a cavity carved by the stellar pair. This idea is essential because it resolves part of the paradox. If the material near two stars is too turbulent to assemble a planet easily, then the planet may have formed elsewhere and only later reached its current orbit. The final position does not always reveal the birthplace. In astronomy, as in geology, what we see is often the result of a history rather than a moment. Present stability may be the final survival of a dangerous migration. The planet moves inward until it reaches the inner edge of the permitted zone and stops there, as though it had encountered an invisible cliff. Closer in, the orbits would become fragile. Farther out, its effect on the eclipses would be harder to detect. This is precisely why many candidates appear near dynamically sensitive regions, not because all planets exist there, but because there they become noticeable. Every observational technique selects only part of reality. Transits favor planets aligned with our line of sight. Eclipse timing variations favor bodies capable of measurably influencing the stellar pair. Radial velocities favor objects massive enough to make stars wobble. No method sees everything. Every catalog is incomplete, shaped not only by what exists but also by what we are capable of detecting. This is why the discovery of new circumbinary candidates through temporal anomalies is so important. It does not merely add points to a list. It opens an observational corridor. It tells us there are systems in which the planet announces itself not by dimming a star, but by altering the punctuality of two eclipsing stars. It is a different way of listening to the cosmos. Not the flash, but the delay. Not the figure, but the deviation. Not direct presence, but the gravitational echo left within the mechanics of a larger system. This perspective also changes the meaning of the word chaos. In ordinary language, chaos means the absence of form. In celestial dynamics, however, chaos may indicate extreme sensitivity to initial conditions, regions where tiny differences produce diverging destinies. Yet alongside those regions, islands of stability can exist. A system may be partly chaotic and partly ordered. It may contain forbidden zones and safe corridors. It may expel some bodies while preserving others for billions of years. The question is not whether two stars produce perturbations. They do. The question is where those perturbations become destructive, and where instead they transform into a sustainable modulation. A circumbinary planet survives because of that difference. It does not deny disorder. It passes through it in the form it can endure. And perhaps this is what makes it such a powerful scientific image. It is not a world floating inside fragile perfection. It is a world remaining stable within a more complex celestial machine. Its existence forces us to stop identifying simplicity with possibility. It compels us to recognize that the universe can be stable without being simple, regular without being monotonous, predictable without being elementary. When two stars eclipse one another and their rhythm reveals a tiny imperfection, That imperfection may be the sign of a hidden architecture. It may be the weight of a planet we have never seen, yet one that shifts time enough to make itself suspected. It is an almost philosophical form of presence. To exist not because one appears, but because one alters what appears. In the future, longer observations and more precise instruments may confirm some of these candidates and discard others. Some signals will turn out to be stellar effects. Some bodies will prove too massive to be called planets. Others will become real worlds, added to the family of circumbinary planets. But the decisive step has already happened. The mental boundary has shifted. Two suns no longer automatically mean orbital ruin. A binary system is not merely a place of instability. It can be a parent system, a double gravitational hearth, a moving center around which a planet finds its path. And the most astonishing thing is that we may discover it not by looking at the planet itself, but by listening to the faint disorder of time. One eclipse arriving too early, another too late, two stars seeming to lose their precision while actually revealing, through their luminous hesitation, the presence of an invisible world belonging to them both. If you've made it this far, it means you love curiosity as much as we do. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like, write a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support what we do. Your presence truly makes a difference. Until the next exploration.